Hey guys, welcome to Mzansi and USA News. Today we are going to do the African National Congress's manifesto, the ANC, or rather the ruling party. Now let's go immediately to priority number one. Their priority number one, as can be seen there, is to what? Put South Africa to work through public employment programs that create work opportunities in the public, small businesses and social sectors. This is problematic in many ways than one. It has been tried and tested and it has failed under the same government. This is nothing but a communist propaganda. Employment is not created through public programs and NPOs and all that. It is created through profit-generating businesses that are then able to invest the same profits into employment, into infrastructure, into further business development by establishing new branches everywhere. As you have heard in the past few months when I did a video about ArcelorMittal, where VW made a comment of how load shedding was crippling their bottom line, that they had spent more than 136 million rands on diesel just to keep the lights on. And they said they could have utilized this money for creating, or rather producing, a new car next to the Polo Vivo. There was a new car that they wanted to install, or rather to start producing in South Africa, but they couldn't because their proceeds were depleted. Basically, the reason for this discourse is to show you what happens when businesses are allowed to make profit and they are not tampered with. You create an environment that's conducive for them to make profits. They then create more work and more work and more work. But you start interfering in business, as the African National Congress has in many ways than one, including the Eskom disaster, then what you start having is shrinking profits, shrinking business opportunities, shrinking employment opportunities, poverty, malnutrition, a dying economy that doesn't grow more than 2%. Now, they promise here that over the next 5 years, we will, they say, create and sustain 2.5 million work opportunities delivering public goods and services in communities. This includes work done through the presidential employment stimulus, funding to civil society through non-profit companies and organizations to provide work opportunities, expand and institutionalize the National Youth Service in partnership with South African National Defence Force, and work opportunities for unemployed graduates. Now, I think I've already touched on this, that NPOs, there's no way NPOs are a sustainable way of creating employment. That's like saying government should create employment. How does government create employment? Government doesn't have money. So how do they get money? They tax somebody, okay? And so if the tax base decreases because of the fact that there's no business opportunities for those who are paying tax to pay tax, because if they are not profitable, they can't pay tax. And if there is no private sector employees, then the government employees is not sustainable at all. That is why government should not be the primary creator of employment. They should not identify themselves as creators of employment. They should identify themselves as creators of an environment conducive to investment. How do they do this? By reducing tax, by removing all those laws like affirmative action, like black economic empowerment, those laws that will chase away investors, by ensuring there's security, by ensuring the infrastructure works, so that ArcelorMittal doesn't close its business and fires 3,500 people because they cannot get their steel to where it's supposed to be as fast as possible, because there's no railroads. Railroads, the steel is being stolen, and therefore it becomes impossible for them to survive in South Africa. It's no longer profitable. You get the point? So that's how government does it, by ensuring that the railroads are there and they are adequately protected against criminal elements, by ensuring that there is no porous borders. This is how government creates an environment. An environment of law and order attracts investors. When investors have surety that, okay, if I invest here, my profit is guaranteed, I'm guaranteed to make X amount of money, then they will invest. But if they invest in a place, it's like throwing water in the ocean, right? A bucket of water in the ocean. You'll never see the difference. That's like taking money and throwing it in a toilet and flushing it away. That's what you do when you are investing in a country that stands not to yield any return on your investment. There's not one single investor in the world that wants to invest in such a country, black or white. So the skin color here is completely immaterial. That's the first thing. The other thing is, since Zuma took over office in 2008, the ANC has only been able to add only 2 million jobs to the economy in 15 years between Zuma and Ramaphosa. Remember, Ramaphosa has already served the first term. He's finished 5 years already in office. Between he and Zuma, they've only added 2 million jobs. So why would they suddenly, the same party, create 2.5 million jobs in 5 years? That's how you know that they are lying here. What is it that they are going to do differently that they haven't done in the past 15 years? Remember, Ramaphosa's first term was a dismal failure. We all had high hopes, but he failed. He failed, if it's at all possible to say something like what I'm about to say right now, in language. He failed with cum laude. You get the point? He really mastered the art of failing. That is Cyril Ramaphosa. That is why in 2023, we had more than 300 days of load shedding, which was ridiculous. Nevertheless, let's move to their next bullet. So they are saying they will increase the support for small enterprises, entrepreneurs, and cooperatives, especially in townships and villages, providing additional 1 million work opportunities with set-asides for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. For me, my understanding is that they simply mean they will practice corruption through tenderpreneurs, right? That's what they mean by that. And here's the other thing. Observe that they are leaving men out again in their program. This government has been taking a male child, a female child to work since 2004. Not once did they take a boy child to work. Why is that the case? Why is that the case? There is no case that can be made that the apartheid government had oppressed black women more than black men. That case cannot be made. Nevertheless, that's a separate video altogether, but it is irritating to find that a government where black men, most of them were in Robben Island, most of them died on the streets. Okay, you can't have two most, I guess, if you want to be critical. So we'll say most of them were outside, few of them were in Robben Island, most of them were killed, however, those were outside, and they died and they were buried, right? We saw them and we buried them. What's the point that I'm making? The point that I'm making is it cannot be when it's time to benefit that now the very same men, the youth, that fought against the system of apartheid, we are now being sidelined. It cannot be correct. That's not correct at all. Our government should stop following American activities that they do not even know why they are being implemented. America for the past 50 years has been taking a girl child to work. Not once have they taken a boy child to work. So South Africa has just copied and pasted this without knowing what are the effects of this on our society. First and foremost, we are Africans. Americans contributed significantly towards our oppression. It's very important for people to know they did have the power and the ability to dethrone the government of apartheid. They chose not to. They allowed Mandela and the rest of the political prisoners to rot in jail for that long. So it is very, very important for people to understand that America, therefore, is not a moral example for us to follow. Once the African National Congress starts following copy-paste, everything that's being done in America, LGBTQI, we're copying-pasting. Minor attracted persons, that is pedophiles, copying-pasting. Can you see that? Complete nonsense. It's not acceptable. It's not supposed to be done. We ought to act as though we have a brain cell that is functioning in our heads. We ought to have a discourse about every strategic decision which we are taking if we are trying to build a country. We're not trying to build an America in an African soil. We're trying to build a country that is functional. So yes, there are things we can copy from America, but there are things we can say, no, thank you. There are things we can copy from other European countries, from the Latin America, but there are things where we can say, no, thank you. And one of them is this notion of taking a girl child to work. We shouldn't create an environment of unequally yoked between boys and girls, because this is not going to turn out well. Not at all. In any generation, it never does. I mean, explain why today we are sitting where we are sitting, where we are number one in rape in the world. How did that happen? Please remember, this only happened under this current government with these policies. The people who are perpetrating these crimes are between 15 to 35 years old, by far majority, right? That means they were either not born at the time the ANC took over, or they were 5-year-olds. So basically, the people who are perpetrating these crimes of rape and murder in South Africa, they are literally students of the ANC, students of the policies of the ANC. Can you see that? Do you now understand why Zuma has such a following? Nevertheless, I digress. Let me come back to priority number one of the ANC. So they're saying they are going to engage. Or before I get to the engage the private sector, just to finalize on the first bullet. So to say you are going to increase the support for small enterprises, entrepreneurs, what has been done in the past 30 years has been a significant failure. Doing the same thing over and over again is actually the definition of stupidity, according to Einstein. So it's high time for South Africans to understand, or for the ANC to understand, that you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. Affirmative action has failed. And what we call BEE has failed. Allow entrepreneurs a space to operate. Relax your tax laws, your regulations about, which are barriers of entry, by the way, to business. Also the regulations about, what do you call this, a minimum wage and employment equity targets for small, medium enterprises. Those are laws that will bankrupt most companies because they're not sustainable. Whilst you're a small business, you want to be encouraged, not discouraged by ridiculous laws and ridiculous taxes that you have to pay. So consider cutting down taxes for business as well as private individuals. But nevertheless, let us proceed. Let's look at then engage the private sector on job creation. Well, to contribute to national efforts to create employment and get South Africa working. This statement by now for me is boring. It has been made ad nauseum. Why would the private sector invest in a country with policies like South Africa? Policies like employment equity, BEE, now NHI, etc. Why would the business want to invest in such a country? I mean, President Ramaphosa has just now successfully managed to sign into law the NHI, which is going to literally render a lot of people jobless in the medical sphere. Makes absolutely no sense. So you are being told by business that you're seeking to engage. Engaging business means you talk to business, they talk to you, you listen to them, and you adjust and you make certain changes, because you are not an expert in business. It is not expected for government to be an expert in business. Government creates an environment conducive for business to exist. They don't come up with an ideology, a Marxist ideology, which the ANC, because of their alliance with COSATU and SACP, is pushing down the throat of businesses. It's ridiculous. Continue to promote and monitor employment equity to ensure that Black people, women, and persons with disabilities are represented in the public and private sectors. So Black men are not supposed to be represented in these areas. What is this identity politics? And by the way, this last bullet on priority one is the reason why private sector would not invest in South Africa. I'm not making this up. Thabo Mbeki in 2008, and he repeated that, I think it was 2020 or 21, that private sector has a lot of cash in their bank accounts, which they are not investing into the economy. And he asked in 2008 why. He asked that question again recently. Well, I have the answer to that question. The answer is simple. Your laws are prohibitive for them to invest in the country. They love the country. And I normally give this example for people to understand, regardless of your skin color. Let's talk about us who are black. Okay, think about this. Imagine yourself now, you are living in this country, South Africa. No, it's not a good example. A good example is you are black, you are living in America. America is 75%, 70 to 75% white people. Imagine America now passes laws against black people. That means there is a systematic attitude against black people, okay, in terms of the system that is operating at the time. This is a hypothesis. Now, you are a billionaire. Would you invest in that country? If you are being objective, the answer to that is no. Why would you invest in a country that hates people that looks like you? Why is this difficult for the African National Congress to comprehend? It's really very simple. BEE discriminates against white children who were not even born in 1994. So why should the white billionaires, who are not only South Africans, others are foreigners, but because of their skin color, why would they invest in a country like South Africa? South Africa is a beautiful country, but its beauty and mineral resources are inadequate for business to come and invest. You remove the communist ideology that is a driving force in the ANC, South Africa will prosper like has never been seen. The 5% that it grew by, that created 6 million jobs during Mbeki's era, I'm telling you, would look like a kindergarten. You simply remove that nonsense and the corruption that the ANC, which basically means to remove the ANC from power. That's the only way you can remove its policies, because they are hell-bent. They are literally prisoners of ideology. I have not seen anybody who believes the things that the ANC believes repenting. Read the book by Thomas Sowell, The Vision of the Anointed. I have never, ever, ever seen anybody who believes the things the African National Congress and Malema believes repenting of the wrongs that they have done. Their repentance is a public marketing which seeks, it's not a repentance unto sorrow that a person is really, no. They are going to repeat that again. I mean, I just saw Ivan Jim on a newspaper article today. Ivan Jim, those of you who don't know him, you can Google him. He's a NUMSA leader. Ivan Jim is responsible for more than 200 people losing their jobs at VW South Africa in 2007 in a strike that went on for a whole month, which was an illegitimate strike. Under Thabo Mbeki as a president, and VW dismissed all of those people, the elderly people, whom to this day have never gotten jobs anywhere else. And you know what they did? They replaced them with young people. What did Ivan Jim do? He just disappeared in the public domain for a little while. Today he's telling us who to vote for, the same guy. This is the attitude of these communists. They are anointed to tell us what solutions to our problems are. First and foremost, we don't have a problem until they show up with their solutions. Solutions like BEE. I mean, think about it. I'm black, and in 1994, I voted for the ANC. Did we ask for the African National Congress to come up with a policy like a BEE? No, we did not. Maybe we are guilty of not having read its manifesto. That's the very reason why I'm reading its manifesto right now for you, so that you can see that the rot is in the manifesto. Can you see that? So they say, continue to promote, monitor employment equity to ensure that black people, women, and persons with disabilities are represented in the public and private sector. Did you see that they didn't mention Indians or coloreds? Did you see that? Okay, they would normally define coloreds as black people, however, not as Africans. So let me not say colors are not mentioned. It's an error on my part. They are mentioned under black people. So ensure that black people, women, and persons with disability, but you see that white people are not mentioned there, but yet they are South Africans. And then he says, in the professions and artisanal sectors, towards the growth of vibrant, non-racial and non-sexist middle strata. Really? You have a law that is promoting certain group of people because of their skin color, and your intention is to create non-racialism. That's a serious joke, guys. It really is a serious joke. To behave as though the people who are currently employed or who are in the working sphere are the same people that were there in 1988 when de Klerk challenged Botha is nonsensical. Right now, if you go to any government department, you almost will not see a white person. Not at all. Why? Because for the past 30 years, it's been forbidden by law to employ them or to promote them. And by the way, the same law is being used to disadvantage black men in the government of the ANC. And this is the reason why the private sector would not invest in South Africa. I think I've overdone that point. Let's move to priority number 2. Priority number 2. Can you see priority number 2 there on your screen? So priority number 2 is to build our industries for an inclusive economy by implementing a cross-cutting industrial strategy that drives growth and creates opportunities for youth and unemployed persons. Over the next 5 years, we will advance industrialization as a driver of economic transformation with active support for localization and high growth and labor-intensive industries. Protect existing industries like steel and advance industries of the future. I mean, you know that this is mumbo jumbo. How do you know that? ArcelorMittal just last year, December, announced publicly they were retrenching 3,500 people. President Cyril Ramaphosa is said to have gone and negotiated with them to wait up until after the elections, meaning he knows those people are going to be laid off, because I did a video which is on this channel which talks about how Ramaphosa's government is sabotaging the private sector. Listen to that video. How Ramaphosa's government is sabotaging the private sector. You sabotage the private sector, you're going to have a lot of retrenchments. The fact that our ports, our rails are not, our ports that is in the sea, Transnet, our rails under Transnet or PRASA are not working properly. The steel is being stolen, meaning there's no proper security. That is a problem, which creates further problems. The real issue has led to a solution by South Africans who are very dynamic individuals who love their country. Then they started using the roads, but now the trucks in the roads are creating traffic congestion. As though that's not enough, because that leads to lead time, which is excessive. Now you can Google what lead time is if you don't know, but because I have explained it in one of the videos, which leads to lead time, which is excessive. And then it also leads to unproductive hours for all those who are going to work. But not only that, it is now becoming hazardous and very dangerous to drive on our roads. Why? Because so many trucks on the road means more potholes. And the wear and tear of the roads is much higher than it was when our rail system was functioning at its peak. So can you see that people are trying to solve the problem created by government, and then this leads to further problems and a loss of life? Can you see that? A lot of people have lost their lives through these potholes, these ginormous potholes. Try to drive to Mpumalanga. You'll be amazed by what you'll see on the road. And if you don't know the area, you would literally die. You will perish on the road there. So they are going to increase investment in large-scale social and economic infrastructure plan. Shell just announced that it's leaving South Africa. They are disinvesting in the country. And the ANC is still lying to us like this. This second priority, once again, the question is, you could look at it this way. I could ask a question, why was this not done in the past 30 years? But observe, I have not asked that question just yet. My question is pretty simple. Right now, ArcelorMittal is retrenching 3,500 people. Shell has just announced this very month of May. Where are we now? 23rd of May, beginning of May, or towards the end of April. Shell just announced that they are disinvesting in South Africa. And then they say fix the current constraint in energy, transport, and logistics as important networks industries and strategic national assets that are critical to industrialization, growth, and development. When did they come to this realization? that these are important strategic assets that are critical to industrialization, because some of us have known this all along. When did they come to this realization? Because if they have known this all along, they wouldn't have sabotaged Transnet. They wouldn't have sabotaged ESCOM. Continue cultivating partners to support the development and expansion of domestic industries with significant potential to create sustainable jobs. Well, you will have to remove the ridiculous legislation that makes it impossible to start and sustain small businesses in South Africa for you to do that. Expand Black Industrialist Program to support 2,000 companies. Look, these people are just saying these things so that they can get a vote, to be honest with you. They are not going to do any of these things that they are saying here. Now, am I being negative towards the ANC? No. The ANC has, it is unreasonable to think that people that have demonstrated to you for 30 years that they have no love for this country and they are completely unwilling to change. They are completely unwilling to listen to anybody. And NHI is a typical example of that, to willing to anybody, because they have all the answers. And guess what? All these so-called answers that they have been a recipe for destruction everywhere they've been implemented. So they want us to fold our arms and observe them destroying our country whilst they are looting the resources so that when the country has reached rock bottom, they can run away and live in some island somewhere with their looted resources. Can you see that? That's why we have to remove this communist from power. Tackle high cost of living by taking steps to make that's priority number 3. Tackle high cost of living by taking steps to make everyday life more affordable for workers, unemployed persons, women-headed households, and middle class by addressing key needs like food, housing, healthcare, energy, transport, and wages. This is a joke if you care to think that it is their policies that have brought us here. Yes, I understand the things like what happened in 2008 when Obama was the president, but we were shielded on that based on the previous government's policies, which were really much more conservative policies, that is Mbeki's policies. So the real effect of those policies was seen in how it shielded us through the economic storm that Obama was brewing in America. And right now, Joe Biden is brewing a storm in America, and when America sneezes, the whole world catches the flu. But we could go back to what happened during the Mbeki Zuma era, right at that interface process when we were moving from Mbeki to Zuma. And we can see if the policies that Mbeki had implemented, the conservative policies Mbeki implemented, were able to shoulder an economic storm even for his successor, then we can conclude that if Zuma had proper policies, he would have been able to shoulder Ramaphosa's government. And having seen that Ramaphosa, or rather knowing that Ramaphosa has been in power now for the first term and he has finished it, this is his second term, we can also conclude that he is completely clueless because he has not taken any drastic austerity measures that seeks to grow the economy. For example, you could start by dropping or lowering the burden of the pay-as-you-earn for the highest bracket to be 25% across the board if you really mean it when you're saying you want to tackle the cost of living. Why are we paying 41% on pay-as-you-earn? Of course, I'm talking about the bracket in which I was in. I'm not talking about the bracket that other people are in. There are different brackets of pay-as-you-earn. Each and every individual will know what is their bracket. But why are there people paying 41%? Because even if you were to reduce and you look at a scale of the tax tables, and the highest was 25%, not everybody will be 25%. Just like today, not everybody is at 41%. But why are we being taxed that much? It's ridiculous. Why are we having a VAT that is 15%? Think about dropping the VAT to 5%. If you are really serious about tackling the high cost of living, they wouldn't do this. Why? Because that's where they get the money that they are stealing. Remember that. They're looting. And what is strange about all of this, when Ronald Reagan in America cut taxes, government generated more revenue. To prove that was not a fluke, when Donald Trump came into office in America and he cut taxes, Government generated more revenue. That's why he was even able to give 1.4 trillion to the army, 7.4 billion, 7.4 billion to the army, to get the sophisticated equipment that Joe Biden is now enjoying as a president. It's because of Trump's economic policies. Why is Ramaphosa and the African National Congress not learning anything from this? Instead, they are still busy with Karl Marx's theories of bourgeois and petit bourgeois and all that nonsense. What has these yielded? Where? In which country did this work successfully? Because we can see what Mao did. He killed 40 plus million of his own people using this same nonsense of communism. And we can see that China is now where it is because they departed from Mao's policies 30 years ago. So why is the ANC trying to introduce that? We could see Soviet Union failing and killing 20 to 25 million of its people under Stalin through the same poverty and malnutrition that Mao killed so many Russians of. Should South Africans start dying of poverty and malnutrition in large numbers for the ANC to recognize that the solution is not in giving people 350 rands, but it is in cutting taxes for business so that business can create more employment. People take pride in working. Small medium enterprises is what builds an economy, but small medium enterprises is not NPOs. This is very, very important for you to understand. There's a difference between an NPO is a non-profit organization. A non-profit organization depends on me as a taxpayer to survive. They have to go and queue up in government's department to get more or less what you would call a tender. But in this case, it's not a tender. It's a grant that they get a year, every year for that matter. But why should there be organizations like this? Every organization should stand on its own 2 feet. Yes, government can support, for example, with farming. I agree when they talk, and I think I had indicated this when I was doing a different political party, the EFF's manifesto, where you're talking about supporting the farmers to give them certain utensils at some point in time. But when the farmers begin to make proceeds, they need to pay those loans back. There is no free lunch, good people. Free lunch does not exist. So you could start by dropping or lowering the burden of pay as you earn. That's the first thing. This will enable a lot of working South Africans to come out of poverty, as they will have more disposable income. And when people have disposable income, they are able to open a salon and employ 2 people whilst they are doing something else. Can you see that? They are able to invest that money in the economy. They are able to start small, medium businesses that will employ more people. And the more people are out of poverty, the less people will be on a 350 grant. And the less people are on a 350 grant, the more our tax money will be used for its intended purpose. So they say over the next 5 years, they will prioritize food security, including through VAT exemption on essential items. We don't need VAT exemptions. We need VAT reduction. VAT is too high, just like the pay-as-you-earn is too high. How about reducing VAT from 15% to 5%? That will really assist with food prices. If you really wanted to assist with food prices, because remember, as I always say, it's not like government is a business that must exist. Not at all. There's nothing that our government is doing that we couldn't do. I'll make a video after I've done with these political manifestos that will focus on what is the role of government. Let us proceed. Maintain and expand subsidized basic services like water, houses for the poor, and indigent policies in municipalities. You know, South Africans drank water from the tap right throughout the apartheid era, except for those in rural areas, because most of the rural areas were accounted as part of the TPVC states. It's ironic that during this time, our government is unable. Our water in Umgeni River is filled with sewage. In the Vaal River, same story. The beaches in KZN, people couldn't swim this past December. Those who dared do against instruction were hospitalized. I've met at least 2 people who were hospitalized because they wouldn't listen to instructions. You get the point? So our government is really failing us with distinction. They are failing with flying colors, if there's such a language in English. Then they say they're going to strengthen health services and implement the national health insurance to make quality healthcare affordable and available to all. Well, quality healthcare was available during apartheid to all. The ANC inherited some of the best hospitals in Africa, amongst the best in the world. What did they do with them? Huh? Okay, I see now Steve Biko has some new accessories, new gadgets, new equipment. Brilliant. But what has happened to what you inherited from apartheid? Why do you allow things to debilitate yet you get tax? Because your hands is in the cookie jar. But I'll deal with NHI in a separate video completely altogether. Suffice to say, NHI is tantamount to building a house in the air. Then they say promote cheaper and subsidized solar power. You know, South Africa needs to make use of mineral resources it has at its disposal and transition responsibly to other sources of energy without compromising its people, its economy, as it has been the case under the ANC government. South Africa must firstly stand as a sovereign state that it is and tell Europe and America, first and foremost, you are in no moral ground to tell us about any global warming, because if there is really in reality global warming, you people are probably responsible for it, seeing that morally you are so bankrupt that you chose to make other fellow human beings slaves for so many years. They are in no position, therefore, to tell us that let's allow children to go hungry because we are now we are going to stop instantly using coal and we are going to transition into what you call clean energy. No, that's not smart. That's tough. That is foolishness in high and visible places. We need to transition smart. I'm not saying there shouldn't be transition. Nor am I saying there is no global warming. No, not at all. Not at all. Nor am I saying there is global warming. I'm not saying that either. All I'm simply saying, we need to do this at our own pace and see what works for us and not allow people who colonized us to tell us what to do. Not at all. Otherwise, we're not running this country. Someone else is. Introduce measures to regulate rental prices for student accommodation. There you go again. There you go again. This is not a role of a government that seeks private sector investment. It's just complete nonsense. It's a communist ploy to tamper with the free market economy. What about all the buildings that are debilitating in Hillbrow that belongs to the state? Why don't you renovate those buildings and ensure that children who are going to school are accommodated there? And these buildings exist all over the country, all over the CBDs of this country. What about those buildings? Why don't you use those buildings? Use the money which we pay you on a monthly basis to work on the infrastructure. And then after you've renovated those buildings, you can even be able to sell them to the private sector and obviously expect them to maintain them at a certain level. Or you can simply fix them and then give, if you want to apply this, your communist ideology, and then give them to students to occupy them for free. But you're going to have to monitor what those students do in those buildings so that the buildings do not debilitate the way Hillbrow, Yeovil has actually been run down. Ensure the national minimum wage increases in line with inflation and ensure full compliance. Minimum wage is a problem, a serious problem. I'll talk about minimum wage on a different video altogether, because minimum wage is worth a video by itself. But minimum wage is a problem. It's not a problem for me. It's a problem for the ill-experienced, for the less experienced, for those who do not have experience. It's a barrier to entry in the workplace. Priority number 4. Invest in people by meeting the basic needs of all. Investing in education, improving health outcomes, and improving service delivery. You will not achieve that with NHI. Give national and provincial governments greater responsibility to support municipalities that struggle to provide services to communities. Why was this not done in the last 30 years? Give national and provincial governments more powers to intervene. Oh, I'm still sitting here at number 2, so we are now here at number 4. They say give national and provincial governments more powers to intervene to provide clean water where municipalities are struggling, to properly provide this service, build maintenance capacity, and complete water infrastructure projects. Provincial government and national government does not have the capacity in terms of technical ability of all the engineers required to deal with water and sanitation as well as electricity. This is a competency that resides in the municipalities, and municipalities are supposed to be adequately staffed with these resources, because that's where, if you are serious about service delivery, when we have a problem, there's a burst of sewer or whatever the case may be, they need to be able to fix that within a 24 hours service delivery timeline, or even less than that. When there's water leakages, they need to be able to fix that. So you can't have those services residing in the province. It's a waste of time. If they are in the province, as a matter of fact, I'm one person who believes the entire provincial leg of government is not required. What you require is a national government to pass the laws, as well as the municipal government. Now, some people are going to say that I'm suggesting that people should lose their jobs. No, the people that are at provincial level, those skills can be utilized at the municipalities. Municipalities are lagging, and municipalities is where the service delivery is at. That's where the rubber meets the tar. You can't have a group of people who are earning ginormous salaries as people as in the provincial government and sitting there twiddling their thumbs and doing absolutely nothing. You shouldn't have that in a development state, in a developing state like South Africa. Okay? Nevertheless, let's proceed. So they say give national and provincial more powers. So for me, they simply need to capacitate them, because they've had 30 years. You could simply ask the question, what were you waiting for all these years? For the infrastructure to run down? Then let's look at the next point. Continue the progressive legislation of universal quality basic services and provision of social wage through education, housing, transport, water, sanitation, electricity, healthcare, and communications. You know, sometimes the African National Congress write things, né? And when you read them, you ask yourself, what does this even mean? Really? If you read this, having read what I just discussed for you, you get to a point you say, but these people are just speaking English. That is why they are not even going to be able to deliver this. Some of these manifestos should just be one line. You get the point? Because there are things government is supposed to deliver, there are things government is not supposed to deliver. Nevertheless, on the video of the reason why governments exist, I'll talk about that more. Improve governance and the public service work with communities to deliver quality, reliable basic services, eradicate corruption, and maintain and build new infrastructure. Okay, that's a joke. How is it going to be done? The president is corrupt to the core. He was saved by his own political party from accounting in our parliament concerning Palapala. He has not had the decency to resign his job. So how is he going to do? I mean, then you move away from the president. Look at his deputy. He has a house of 37 million. What do you think that means? Huh? A bond. What do you think is a bond of 37 million? A bond of 3.5 million that Juju had is 35,000 rands a month. So how much is a bond of 37 million? It's 370,000 rands a month. How much do you think Paul Mashatile is earning as a deputy president? His salary is between 2.5 million and 3 million. That's how much he's earning. So he can't afford the house in which he stays. So where did he get the money to buy that house? I'm just giving you a simple synopsis of what would be considered if we're doing a lifestyle audit of this individual. I mean, even if you look at all his salaries, okay, and you from the days he was the MEC or whenever he started working, if you consider being an MEC work, from those days up until now, you look at all his salaries, still they would not allow him to stay in a house of 37 million. So that's the deputy president, okay? He has this lingering aura of corruption around him. or at least having received proceeds of corruption to purchase the property in which he stays. Why is South Africa tolerating this? Oh, I told you about the president and why the president would not be able to get rid of corruption. Look at the ANC NEC, Gwede Mantashe. He was mentioned in the Zondo Commission, is one of the people by whom Agrees is saying on, and he never denied that he received the benefits that Agrees claimed. As a matter of fact, Gwede Mantashe's video on the Zondo Commission is really worth watching. It's still there on YouTube. It's really worth watching. Go and watch it. You'll be blown away. The man is guilty as sin. He shouldn't be in the public domain. How about Zizi Kodwa? Why is he still a minister? After what we've learned in the Zondo Commission, once again, Zizi admitted. So why is he a minister? Should I go on? How are these people going to get rid of corruption? Do they mean by that to get rid of the people that they do not like? How are they going to sustain good governance? I mean, that's like the Enron CEO saying he's going to implement good governance, but yet he is at the center of the corruption that led to bad governance at Enron. When the ANC makes the statement, that's what they are saying. They are insulting our intelligence collectively, jointly and severally as South Africans. That's why they need to be moved from power. Now, of course, that's not dependent on me. That depends on all of us. And peradventure, that the ANC is not moved, then South Africans are going to get exactly what they deserve. It's just that simple, good people. It's really that simple. You get a government you deserve. The past 30 years has been because South Africans have voted based on their skin color. It's just that simple. Let's move on. Invest the capability of our people by improving access to quality of education and health. Look, NHI is not going to provide a quality of health to anybody. NHI is a communist ideology. It's going to drag the standards of the good hospitals that exist, the 800 private hospitals that exist, is going to drag them to the 4,200 public hospitals that were not in a state of rendering any service to anybody. Now they're going to drag the 800 to the same, what we call lower standards as the other. So what you're going to have here is a mass exodus of people who are educated. And now there are some deaf people who are going to say, it's fine, abahand. You know what's going to happen when that happens? There's only 7.2 million of us who are paying tax. And if we were to hold on to our tax and not pay it tomorrow, the country would cease to exist. As you know it, there would be no service delivery. There will be no SASSA grants. There will be no pensions payouts. There will be nothing if we were to refuse to pay our tax. So before you open up your mouth and say we should leave, think about what you mean by that. Your roads will not be fixed. Everything will be debilitated. You'll open your tap and you'll smell sewer from the water that's coming out of your tank because there is no taxpayer in your country. So before you open up your mouth, you should think about it. Before you start typing on this video, you should think about what I'm telling you. I'm giving you guys this information because I have thought about the things that I'm sharing with you. Okay, let's move on. So invest in the capability of people improving the quality of education. Really, teaching children the things the ANC is teaching children now. And why now? How will they do this? Why should we believe them? Are you following me? We ought to ask these questions. Strengthen the role of families, supporting both young and older citizens, giving special attention to the responsibilities of family in raising children. Really, in view of the bill that is sitting on the president's desk right now, these are nothing but empty words. The bill is the bill that talks about arresting parents for not sending children to school for a compulsory age, the starting age. And here they are pretending that they are strengthening the role of families. How are you strengthening the role of families if you want to dictate to families how they should raise their children? Government has no children, just like government has no money. They get the money by taxing us. And if you talk about people's contract, it's high time we reviewed the tax amount of money that we pay. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't pay tax. I'm saying it's high time we discussed what are the effects of tax on us as individuals. Of course, we should pay tax if we are to have a government, if we are going to have roads and infrastructure and the police and the army and all that. But all I'm simply saying, it shouldn't be this ridiculous, exorbitant tax that we are paying, and everybody should pay their fair share. A lot of those who have a big mouth don't pay their tax. A good example is Julius Malema. Nevertheless, I'm not talking about him today. Strengthen the quality of services provided for older persons, including community-based and residential care facilities, and afford them the necessary consideration and respect by society. I ask again, how is this going to be done, seeing that your comrades' hands are in the cookie jar? You have not sent one of them to jail. Instead, your government has kept people like Zizi Kodwa, Bheki Cele, Nomvula Mukonyane, just to mention a few. This is by no means an exhaustive list of corrupt or alleged corrupt figures within your party. What would deter anyone in the ANC not to steal? Who was fired for the NAFSA scandal? Nobody. Let's look at their last priority. Priority number 5. Oh, no, it's the second last. Defend democracy and advance freedom. Promote and defend the rights of all South Africans against racism, sexism, gender-based violence, homophobia, discrimination, and other intolerances. You know, the presence of ANC in power has resulted in the following: highest rape rate in the world, 3rd highest rate in murder, 3rd unemployment rate, and 10th highest rate in organized crime. This is because the ANC has no vested interest in combating crime. Instead, they want to divide us, as they have for the past 30 years, in order to rule us. That's why South Africa is such a divided society. It's because of the ANC. They have succeeded. Advance the rights and dignity of children, youth, older persons, persons with disability, and members of the LGBTQI community, and continue to fight for women emancipation and truly non-sexist society. The ANC has been in government for 30 years. Who's oppressing women? Why do they want our vote if they've been oppressing women for the past 30 years? Why have they not sent to jail those who are oppressing women under their, their watch? Can you see that this is nothing but just political words, political propaganda? The ANC is very, very big on identity politics. Who said our children's rights and dignity were under a threat? Why are we talking about rights of different groups? Are these not the human beings? I want to repeat that again. Are these not human beings? Are they not the recipients of the rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights of our Constitution? What is this agitation that is so divisive? What is its real purpose? What will you do differently than what you had done in the last 29 years? I submit to you nothing. They will do nothing differently. Let's move on. Intensify the war on crime and make our communities safe. This includes action against drugs, organized crime, gender-based violence, femicide, infrastructure, theft. You see their political talking points. How are they going to do all of that? The past 15 years have shown you to be incapable of discharging this obligation. Your porous borders, giving criminals and children more rights than parents, giving criminals more rights, has significantly contributed in our current state of affairs. Gangsterism and corruption, not only in the police, but almost in all spheres of government, is the main reason for this. What do you expect of a government that does not respect whistleblowers? Huh? A government that issues warrant of arrest for whistleblowers. And they claim that they are going to intensify a war against crime when they themselves are perpetrators of crime? Come on, guys, this is a joke. Tackle corruption, improve public accountability, strengthen investigation and prosecution capabilities, and ensure severe consequences for corrupt activities in the public and private spheres. Well, we know this is a blatant lie. The Nugent and the Zondo Commission Life Esidimeni, and many more reports issued by different commissions is a testament to support my statement that this statement by the ANC is a blatant lie. Overhaul the immigration systems in line with the draft white paper on citizenship, immigration and refugee protection to deal with the issue of irregular and illegal migration. Simplify visa application procedures, introduce a unified citizenship, refugee and migration law. The ANC is driven by ideology rather than love for our country and her people. They are incapable of delivering these aspects as they claim. Now, build a capable and developmental state, strengthen links between government at all levels and people, rebuild and improve local government, build a professional and developmental public service based on Matupile principles, and strengthen cooperative governance through district development. Your government departments are extremely corrupt and run by puppets of your deployed cadres like MEC, ministers, and mayors. MECs, ministers, and mayors. Consequently, they are bankrupt of good governance and are a disaster in ethical conduct. So I'm not sure what you're talking about this bullet at all. Reinforce the contributions of arts, heritage, languages, culture, sports, and creative sector more generally to nation building, social cohesion, and national development. For as long as we have tribes that regard themselves to be superior to others in this country, we shall never become a nation. This is very, very important. And maintaining the type of heritage that South Africa has, instead of being united as one country under God, will continue to perpetuate the status quo of the division which we have. And the ruling party seems to be thriving in that. Build a better Africa and world, supporting development. That is now bullet number 6, priority number 6. Build a better Africa and world by supporting development and peace efforts on our continent and across the world. Strengthen trade and investment links with other countries and work towards reform of international bodies. Okay, I think this one I deliberately left out because I felt that no South African would vote because of this. I deliberately ignored that. And because I also had ignored certain sections on the EFF manifesto, I think I would be consistent if I did that over here. Nevertheless, guys, that's the manifesto of the African National Congress. You tell me if you believe any of the things that they have said there. I've given you my analysis next to each bullet. My view is that the African National Congress is cancer to this country. It's up to each individual to decide to vote for a change. And that change obviously can be EFF, because EFF and MK Party are going to lead us to exactly where we are. I'm not quite sure what manner of thinking are those who think that those political parties will bring a change. The EFF and MK Party are more corrupt than the ANC. That's why their leaders, their founders, were fired from the ANC. So the ANC is corrupt, and the leaders of EFF and the MK Party were fired for ill discipline and corruption within the ANC. And you want to tell me that you're going to vote for them? Oh my goodness. What bondage are you bringing to yourself and your children? Nevertheless, this is not a political party for me to vote for. I would not vote for them. They are lying through their teeth, and they are implementing communist ideology when they never told their voters that, remember, Communist Party has never been on the ballot paper. It's always been the ANC that's been in the forefront. Meanwhile, they knew, if you read their manifesto, this is a communist manifesto. This manifesto you see here is a communist manifesto. It doesn't promote free market economy. It seeks indeed to that we should equally share in poverty. You tell me what you think down below. That's it for me on this video. Ciao, ciao. See you on the next one. And the next one will be the DA or the ACDP. One of the two Either one would be the second last. Ciao, ciao. Bye for now.